Hello, and welcome to my very first episode of Making It, a podcast about creating art and making a career of it, focusing on the internet as the main tool for marketing your art. I interview artists who are currently making their own career using all available online methods. I pick their brains, learn all their secrets, and share them with you through this podcast. My first guest on this episode is an artist friend of mine from the UK named Swarez. Swarez is a full-time artist who enjoys the freedom to create bold and challenging pieces based loosely around his love of drip paintings. He paints huge pieces of contemporary and modern art in the controlled pour and drip style, although he paints in a number of different genres and mediums. Swarez does not do exhibitions and has never had any inclination to do so. He's not represented by a gallery or an agent. The interview pretty much started as a conversation the moment we connected on Skype. So, it sounds like the interview is midway through right at the beginning. But don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. It starts off with Swarez actually asking me a few questions, so that could be a great intro to my podcast as well. I'm going to kick it in and hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Here we go.
I mean, before we get going, I'm just curious. What do you do as a trade? I mean, how do you earn a living? I mean,
graphic designer by day.
Right.
So I work at an ad agency nearby and create, marketing, graphic design for small local businesses. And yeah, I've been doing that for about 16 years. And I guess about a couple years ago, I kind of had the realization that I haven't touched a canvas in about 16 years or something, and it was quite startling to me since I started design school. It's like, what happened? I used to love art and I did it all the time, and at one point in my time, I wanted to be an artist. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, what happened to that? And I believed what everybody told me about, an artist is nice, but you don't make a career out of it. And, okay, well, you want to be an artist? Sure. This is what you're going to be, a graphic designer then. And it's good. I've enjoyed it. I'm good at it too, I believe. But it's not being an artist. So I've kind of been playing around a bit and started my ArtsyDesigny website as a place to just kind of be a holding pot for my creativity and a place to share the stuff I've been doing as I've kind of get back into it.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of had the thought of, if I want to get into art, may as well, why don't I talk to some artists that are doing it? And you're one of the first ones I thought about, because I've not just appreciated the art you do, but being a designer, and being in marketing, I've appreciated how you sell yourself as well. And right. It's you've got a fantastic website. It looks like the website of an artist that I want to buy off of, that looks successful, that comes across as being very professional. It comes across as you take care of your clients, your customers, and that's kind of been a model for me, to say the least, of what to kind of aim for down the road as far as how to sell myself online. Mm-hmm. And I kind of got the impression that, you can fill in on this later, that you're probably using more non-traditional methods of selling your work than the old-fashioned finding a gallery, finding an agent, and then relying on them, which so many artists still do today. So I thought, may as well chat and then and why not share it with other people as well? Make a podcast and learn a little bit and see where that goes.
Well, I think the idea is fantastic, and we have the technology around us. I think it's a great idea that we can all share that, because as I've said in times gone by, when people have approached or and asked questions, or the emails. I probably get 24 emails a day from people wanting to know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, whether it's the kind of paints I use, the frames, how to stretch a canvas, what do I do, because I'm an artist and I really love painting, but I don't know what to do. And I although it can can take me a week sometimes just to get through all of that information,
Yeah.
I do get back to everybody. Everybody always gets a reply, and it's a handwritten reply, never a stock reply.
Yeah.
And the same kind of core principles come out in every single email that I get. I'm just going to close the window, Rob, because I can hear all the motorbikes and things going past.
Go ahead.
Right, that's better. That's better. So it's the same kind of answers that I give, and it's a very, very simple thing. If I'm very honest, the whole business is actually a very simple thing. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that. I've got a background in marketing, retailing, and in web design. So what you could say on one hand, that's fortunate, but I've also worked 25 years of my adult life in other ways and other industries. So I'm taking that I've learned into what I do with my art. So I've got a pretty good broad cross section of skill bases to draw upon and to use for thinking, okay, how am I going to make this work? And that's all it comes down to, is that one question. I have something which is my product. This is what I create. I want to share that with the world, and I want them to pay me money so that I can keep doing it. And it's very simple. That's all we want to do.
Yeah, and,
getting to that point is enormously difficult, very, very complicated, but the principles are the same. And the one thing I put into every single email is the fact that I am prepared to work 20 hours every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And quite often it does. I will get by on 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, and that's it. But that's a choice. It's a conscious choice, because I understand that time passes on. I'm 43, and you may or may not know this. I don't put this onto the website, but I'll be everything you ask me, I'll be completely honest with today.
Yeah.
I have only done this since 2007, and that was, I haven't even done it for 5 years. It was July the 7th, and that was the first time in my entire life I'd ever picked up a paintbrush.
That's insanely fantastic. That's actually a really big inspiration for me, because you think, oh, other artists have been doing it all their life, and who am I to come across and just start now? And
well,
go ahead.
You hit a very, very good point there, because it's I think that goes through everybody's head, and I have some close friends who are classically trained artists. They've done it all their life since they were 6 or 7. They might have had gaps in between. 1 or 2 of them are very successful. Some aren't, etc. I've got a very broad cross section of people that I talk with regularly who have different experiences of the art world. But one thing combines all of them together, and that's the fact that they say that they've never got to the point where it's enough. They can never get to the point where they can stop worrying. They can't get to a point where what they're doing is the best thing ever and they don't care about anything else. There are always worries, there are always pressures, and there are always concerns about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Now, you and I will know from doing it, me being a baby in terms of art terms, and you being a well-honed professional because you've done it for so long on and off. But we both have the same... all of us share the same fears. Where's the next piece coming from? Is it ever to sell? How am I going to make this work? My next phase of 3 months of work might be so appalling that I might not sell any of it, or it might take 5 years for someone to go, I really like that. That's what I want to buy. So to go with the 20-hour days, my other thing is it comes down to exposure. And I guess we've got... the X Factor over here, you've got American Idol, etc., etc. So we've got a lot of these reality talent shows, and I always think that's a really, really good model, because the greatest violin player on the planet might be sat in a rundown motel room in Connecticut and never have the opportunity to show what they can do. And it's the same with us. We might produce the most exquisite art that appeals universally, but if we can't get it out to people, it almost becomes a pointless exercise.
Yes.
Not pointless in terms of our own self and because we enjoy painting, or the process of creation that is inbred with us, we have to create. But the point about making it as an artist and being recognized as an artist and being able to put food on your table and have a good standard of living because of it. So if you next week go and produce the best work you've ever done, I think this would look fantastic in, I don't know, for argument's sake, a theatre or a symphony orchestra's headquarters, or the boardroom of Trump Tower, or whatever it may be. Unless people are exposed to that, that will never happen. And that's, I think, one of the very important and fundamental things with transforming from an artist creating great works of art to being able to make it commercially. And the gap actually isn't very, very big. It just comes down to how you can bridge the small gap between the two. And I think that's where technology, websites, understanding how search engines work, and putting that side of it into practice, that's the bit that makes the difference. And that's the difference that I make. That's what I've consciously decided, that's what I need to do. I might have something I really think is great, or a stack of work, and I think, fantastic, I need to do this. I bet I could make a living from this. Then I have to sit down and work out all the ways that I'm going to make that happen. And that's all I've done. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. But the amount of stages between point A and point B are probably about 100.
I think the point is not looking at it as 100 steps as one big step. Just look at it as 100 small steps, but one at a time, and
absolutely,
and take it from here. And like, what's the next step? What am I doing now? And every step you take is a step. So I'm very intrigued. That actually blows me away. If you first picked up a paintbrush in 2007, you said so. To get from So that also proves the point that although there might, regardless if there was a lot of steps, it still happened in a short period of time. So regardless, if you look at it in time-wise, a few years to invest, 3 years to invest in building up my name, building up your brand, getting people who appreciate your art, your fans, to find your art. It's actually not a lot of time in the scheme of things. There's a lot of work behind it, yes, but if you're willing to put up that work, to do it for something that you're super passionate about, why not?
Absolutely, and you've completely summed that up. And it does come down to passion. We know that every artist that will sculpt or paint or craft, stick, glue, create is passionate for what they do. Yeah. Otherwise, they would never do it.
Yeah.
So what you said is it's almost like a piece of poetry. It's almost like a piece of art in the way that you've just expressed that, because you're right. 5 years is in a lifetime of 80, 90 years is not a great time span, but it's what you are prepared to put into that time scale that will make the difference. I understood when I took out a paintbrush and spent 3 or 4 hours with a group of friends of mine. It actually started at a ladies' self-defense class, because I'm a karate instructor. Okay. And instead of us all getting... Well, I actually was the one that used to get beaten up, because I was the only male there, and the ladies needed a punch bag. So a couple of Saturdays before that, they said, "I'll tell you what, in a couple of weeks we're just going to go and paint." So we got given a list of things to go and get, and I went and bought some very, very inexpensive acrylic paints and some brushes and a very small piece of canvas, and we just played for a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. And that was life-changing, and I'd never done it before. And once I was exposed to it, I thought, I just love this. I just lost myself completely.
Awesome.
And then I thought, well, maybe, and I have to be completely honest, I thought maybe if I could sell a few of these and make a few pounds. I've always got an entrepreneurial head, I'm afraid. Sure. I'm always looking for the next deal, It's kind of what drives you on. And that's where it sort of really started. So I invested just a few pounds in a few cheap canvases, started to paint on those, and I just gave them away, just to get people's reactions. Yeah. Now, back then, I was very much a baby in terms of my development. So it's almost taken 5 years to learn about what materials I'm comfortable with. It's taken 5 years to understand how the materials work together, and also to produce the kind of quality that really I need my prices to reflect. It's, for my own personal opinion, it's one thing to have a great-looking painting, but if the frame isn't heavy and true and square, and if the corners aren't perfectly folded, and if there's any kind of flaw in it anywhere, then it never goes anywhere. So the quality has to reflect what goes on the painting as well, and I've had to learn that the hard way as well. So lots of pitfalls along the way, but right from that early stage, all I did, Rob, was just to give everything away. And then slowly but surely, I began to think maybe after 3 or 4 months, I could do with a website, really. And I had no idea how websites worked, what a host was, or anything else like that. I was a little bit in the dark. So I had to teach myself. And there's another big step. because website is where everything is driven. And I apologize if I'm going to whiz through some of the questions that you're about to ask, but we can come back onto that if you want.
I think we're in the heart of the podcast now, so it's a great conversation. I don't mind letting it evolve to how it evolves. That's cool.
It all comes down to website. I didn't know how to build one, so I've got a computer, I've got a screen. Okay, let's find out. So I start and find out what a domain name was, what a hosting company was, how the two work together. And that's where the 20-hour days come in. It's not just about painting.
Yeah.
It's not just about experimenting with materials. It's not about putting things into the trash because you've messed it up and you have to start all over again. And I get that even now, and I will always get that, because I think the only way you can push yourself as a creative is to try different things. Exactly. And you and I both know that 5 times out of 10, they won't work.
Yeah.
But occasionally you'll get 1 in 20 that is absolutely fantastic, and that will give you your next 20 pieces. But it's the web. It all comes down to the web presence. Everything I do and everything I've done, and the paintings and the following and the collectors and everything and all the stuff that goes around the world and goes to private homes, every single part of it comes through my website. I do not do galleries. I do not have representation. I have no agent. I have control over everything. My branding, my marketing, my paintings, the quality, the delivery of them. Yeah. I even drive my van right the way around the country taking art to people. And it's great. Road trips are fantastic. I can get my friend and come on, we're off for a road trip this weekend, and off we go. And it's fantastic because I then get to meet the people who want to buy it.
Yeah.
And that's another fantastic thing. Maybe for me, it's probably better because I can get to see, who buys what and hang it for them. But that's another part of what I'm offering. I'm offering a complete service. If you want to spend £3,000-4,000 on a painting, that's a sizable sum of money. It's always going to be a good chunk of money. So people should get everything they want for that. They get access to me. I will go and hang it for them. I'll stay there the whole day while we put them up and take them down and bring them in the house. Yeah. And you got it, until we get something that works. And when they've got it and they love it, that's when we do the deal. Mm-hmm. So I want to offer a complete experience, and I was very, very aware of that right from the start. Possibly because I was frustrated having researched what galleries do. Traditional galleries, we all know you go in, it's you're almost looked down upon. And I know I'm generalising here, but it's the vast majority of the time my experience has been is that I'm not good enough to walk into a gallery with my Nike trainers and a T-shirt and my ripped jeans. I'm not good enough to buy, and I became very disenchanted with that right from an early stage. And I also, admittedly, from a very greedy point of view, thought, why should I give 60% to a gallery owner and keep 40 for myself?
Yeah.
When I thought that what I was producing, I had the confidence and the passion to believe that it was worth doing on my own. And I wanted to prove to myself a lot of the time, to be honest with you, Rob, that I could do this without a gallery. And I've proved to myself that I can. Don't get me wrong, it's hard. You can go 2 or 3 months without doing anything, and then suddenly a great big, thing comes along and it's fantastic. So no matter who you're selling to or what you're selling, there is always that, where's the next sale coming from? I still have to eat and I still have to do everything else. Now, I do okay. I'm fine. My business is set up. It's taken a long time to build. It's taken this 5 years to get this far, and all that work has gone in behind it. But I'm at a point now where it's supporting itself, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't need to hold shows. I don't need to go into galleries. I don't need to worry about any of that. I just need to worry about painting, producing things that are different, that people can engage with. One of the crucial things, if I can just bring that in, is understanding who it is who's buying my art. A marketeer will say understanding the market, but in a general term, there will be a section of the population that will really like what I do, and then everybody else will pay it lip service. Well, it's the ones who really like it, they're the people that I'm looking for. Because then they will say, okay, I like this, can't afford it at the moment, what can we do? And then we'll work something out so they can get the piece of art that they want. And then they tell their friends and so on and so on. But one of the things I know, one of the questions you were going to ask was what advice sort of would you give, or what would be the first thing that you would do? Absolutely, 100%. The most important thing is find out who your market is. If you're producing whimsical, fun art, ladies sat in the moon, or drinking cups of tea, or on horseback, and it's all very caricature driven, that's completely different to what Jackson Pollock would paint.
Exactly.
So they're two different markets. So if you can understand that and find out, okay, so who's likely to buy this, that's the absolute very first thing to do, because you've got a product. This is, for argument's sake, say you do brightly coloured ceramics. Let's take painting out of the equation for a minute. Who is that market aimed around? Well, you and I could argue that it may be young people. It could be professionals. If it's made from fine bone china, then maybe there's a market there to sell for maybe more mature people, or people who may be semi-retired, or with the kind of thing I do. If I just drop that in, because of the price of some of the pieces, especially some of the larger ones, I know that I understand that my market has to have a reasonable disposable income that they can invest in art. They have to appreciate art to start with, because some of the pieces I produce aren't for everybody. I also know that they will probably be business owners or high-end professionals. So already, because of that, I'm starting to build a picture of what my clients will be. So they're the people I can go after. Once I understand that, the next thing has got to be some kind of web presence. If you want to go gallery route, you still need a website. People still need to know who you are. When there's a name on a gallery website saying this is built by Jeff Smith, then they might type Jeff Smith into Google and find out what else he's doing.
That's right.
So a website is absolutely fundamental, and it's at the core of this. But the reason why I said understand your market first is because when your website comes on, your website needs to be targeted to the people who are going to buy your art. So you might have a whimsical style of art that's very effervescent and uplifting and healing, and it's no good having it look like it's a graffiti-based sort of street art site. It's a very, very bizarre example and perhaps extreme, but I've seen it happen. You and I probably know that there are plenty of flash-enabled sites out there, and they're all plain white, and there's no information about the paintings, there's no prices, the artist is written all in the third person, very aloof, and I'm sorry, but personally when I see that, I'm not interested. I want to know who's painted it. I want them to tell me how passionate they are about their art. I want them to tell me why they painted it in the first place. I want them to tell me that they don't give a stuff about the world, they just want to paint. And I want to feel this passion in their art. And that's what I really engage with. I love that. It's this fantastic depth of feeling that comes out in what you're doing. Almost the painting almost becomes a secondary thing. I want to feel that coming out of the art, because then when I understand that, I appreciate the art a whole lot better. And I'll give you a very, very random example of that. I told you, once you get me started, I never shut up. A very random example of that. Particularly with some of the BBC programmes, which I know you can get for BBC iPlayer and probably from BBC America. On one of the channels, which is BBC4, they run a lot of arts-based programmes on there, and they also, I think on BBC Two, there is a programme called The Culture Show, 90% of which I don't get, and it's way over my head. But when they do some of the art pieces, or somebody is showing in London, or someone is doing this, then some of the critics will come on, and the critics actually talk about what lies behind the painting. And even for an artist, there are a lot of pieces that I can look at and I don't understand and I can't connect with because I'm not getting anything from it, or it just doesn't do, it can't connect with me on a level that I can really, really understand. But when somebody then says, well, this is what was behind it, and explains the shapes, the patterns, the figuration, the materials used, what the artist was doing when they painted it, suddenly I can understand the painting a lot better. And right from an early start, I thought, well, that's important for me anyway, is to give that information to people, which is why on every single painting, I go into what's happening with it, why I painted it, everything else, to try and engage people in what I'm doing, because I'm just telling the truth. People can accept that, or they can or they can not. They can engage with the painting. Some will like some will like others. We've all got personal taste. That's fantastic. But as long as I can communicate what I was doing when I painted it, I would like to think that that helps people connect with the art. So going back to the website thing, it's all very nice having a blank white screen and just pictures of the art in the middle, but sometimes I can feel that can leave you a little bit distant from really what's going on. So I was very, very conscious that I really wanted not necessarily to get into everybody's face, but just to give people the opportunity of taking this information in, or, you know what, if you don't want to, go have a look at some other art. But at least I've given people the option. Yeah. If they want to read about me and what I do, and that I really don't care or give a crap, which is perfectly true, I just go for it. And a lot of people do tend to like that because it's different. And I think different is good. And we're all different. We all produce different art. Exactly. Yours is different to mine. Not everybody will listen to this podcast and think, rubbish, I should go with a gallery and get representation. Fantastic. We need that. We absolutely need galleries. But we also need people to stand on their own 2 feet. We need people to think, okay, how is the only way I'm going to do this? The only way to do this is to sit down and do it myself and learn. And that's all I do every single day is learn. Possibly one of the biggest things to go with the website is I'm not going to get technical on it, but it's making it visible to the search engines. Yes. 95% of people who will buy off me, and probably for a lot of artists that I know, will type into Google, I'm looking for some modern art, or brightly coloured modern art. So I know that I need to be on page 1.
Do you find that it's local searches, or from all over the world they're finding you?
It's all global. It's probably split about 60% in the UK, and the other 40% is global. 22% of my search traffic comes from the US. Not a huge amount from Europe. It's probably under about 7% Europe-wide. Quite a bit for Australia. Nothing in the South Americas, but I say that the vast majority is between the US and the UK. I've got a collector in Germany. I've shipped stuff to Monaco recently. Wow. Just sort of one-offs. But I even have people coming from the US to come and paint with me as well, which is really cool. So that kind of brings me into kind of almost the last sort of bit of about people starting out as an artist. We talked about identifying your market, sort that out, then build your website around that, then make sure you can optimize it for Google. And I have to admit, Google do a very, very good PDF document. If you put optimizing my website for Google into Google, it'll return a PDF, and it's a 30-page PDF for getting started on how to make it the best that you can, so that the search engines can pick up what you're doing.
Is that from Google, or is that?
Yeah, that's from Google.
Okay.
Yeah. Google do their own SEO document, and that is worth its weight in gold. That's where I started with search engine optimization.
They're the ones you're optimizing for, so you may as well read their own documentation.
And this is the thing, Rob, the answers are out there if you just sit down and give yourself enough time to find them. The answers are out there. Yeah. My website, for instance, is a platform, WordPress. Yeah. That's how it's based. Yeah. Started out as a blogging platform. You and I both know it's many people now use it for content management and for their own website. It's fantastic. It does absolutely everything. So you find yourself a theme, do a bit of customization, optimize it for Google, and get all the content in. So those 4 steps is all you need for building a website. But it requires a lot of time in between. Sorry, go on.
Do you run a blog then, or?
I've got a blog. Admittedly, I don't blog very often. I just seem to be. It's a very old cliche, but I'm just horrendously busy, and I never seem to be able to get to write anything on it. I find the ability to share the paintings out on social networks very interesting. And again, being completely honest, whilst it's great to get that shared around and to get links out into cyberspace. Getting recommendations for the number of Facebook likes, number of retweets, and the number of +1s on Google, which I think are the 3 main social sharing platforms that I would consider right at where we're talking about now as being the most important ones. Twitter, I think, is the most important one.
Can you say those again, if you don't mind?
Yeah. In order of importance, Twitter. Absolutely. I see that running the world in about 3 years' time.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I mentioned that to a friend yesterday who's an artist. He's like, but Twitter, but isn't Facebook the big one? Why Twitter? So Why do you think Twitter's number one?
If you look at how the platform is based, it's the most impersonal, personal social sharing platform. And what I mean by that is that Facebook, in terms of its ethos, is based around people being friends. Yeah. And I'm not saying necessarily that Twitter isn't about that, but in this very, very fast-paced world that we live in, Twitter seems to be a very, very instant response platform to be able to share information. And it's the instantaneousness, or the very quick and precise way that Twitter can deliver that, enables you to have a penetration that's, for me anyway, far deeper and far wider and far greater than Facebook can. I'm relying on people on Facebook to either like my page, in which case if they don't, fine, or to go through my friend network, which involves me having to say, yes, I know them, or no, I don't, or hello, you're my friend, would I like to write on your wall? Well, to a greater or lesser degree, I don't have time for any of that. Yeah. If you want to see a picture, click this link because it's on Twitter. If I want to see what Barack Obama's doing, I can go onto his Twitter stream, which is fantastic because it's there and it's there. And I don't have to follow the guy, but if I want to find out, it's instant. Yeah. If I need to find out what my somebody in Australia is doing, I go straight into their Twitter feed. If I want to follow a racing driver, I can find his Twitter feed, and I'll get that through to my stream. So I think the flexibility of Twitter and the fact that it delivers its information so quickly and so precise, and it doesn't mess about with paragraphs, it's 140 characters, is one of the most significant and most genius ideas I think that mankind will ever have in the technology age. I'm not talking about finding fire and inventing the wheel. It's not on the scale of those. But in the last 10 years of our technology age, I think it's fantastic because it's allowed the whole world to communicate on its own terms, without a corporation dictating who you should be friends with and who you shouldn't. And I think ultimately that's where Facebook has its limitations because of that. It can't deliver what it needs to deliver quick enough and to the right people. That's my personal opinion. So.
Well, I believe it was Twitter where I first saw your profile and I started following you, so there you go.
Excellent. Yeah, we know it works then. The other one I mentioned was Google Plus, which is I think is Google's sort of late entry into the social market. For me, the jury's out on that one. Again, if I'm completely honest, I use it for the amount of G pluses I can get because that will help in my rankings of my pages on my website.
I see. So it's completely superficial.
I'm afraid, yes, I don't pay much.
Yeah, it is Google, right? It is Google.
So... It's Google. It's their service. I'm using it for what it was designed to do, and that's a platform to share things, which is fantastic. But ultimately, the number of plus ones you get appear on your dashboard on the back end, and it will have, although they say it doesn't, I know it does. It has an impact on how your search results are done. So that's what I would use. But anything else, I haven't got really time for Pinterest. I don't really get that. There are other things. Flickr has no interest for me. Why would I want my photos on another site? I want people to come to my site to see my photos, not somebody else's. So
interesting.
I'll put my holiday photos on Flickr, but I'm not going to put my art onto Flickr. So.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that, but that's an interesting perspective. A lot of people, especially with Pinterest now, is getting a lot of media attention.
Yeah, it's tricky to know how that one's going to pan out. I can see the niche that it's trying to fill. I'm just not quite sure whether that's something that fits in with what I'm doing. I'm sure it will be very popular and it's a great idea, but maybe it doesn't fit in what I'm doing. I think, and I had this conversation with a great friend of mine, and we've both said to each other that you can get completely lost in social networking if you're not careful. And when do you actually switch off and go, you know what, I'm not going to tweet anything out today, I'm just going to stop. And yet the tweets still come through to your phone, and it still keeps pinging in your pocket, and it's very, very hard to walk away from it. But it's so important these days, of course it is, but it's also that tricky balance between it taking too much of your life and you being able to manage it effectively. And I think the more social networks that come out, the more we're just going to sit like cyber zombies in front of our monitors, and that worries me a little bit. So anyway.
I believe find what works for you, what you enjoy doing. If you enjoy going onto Twitter and you know it's something that you can participate in, give more of yourself to one or two platforms as opposed to spreading yourself out amongst everything and then not really paying enough attention to anything. And then, if you're going to go on Twitter, make it effective, make it work for you. And then if you want to expand out, that's what I feel. So
I completely agree.
yeah.
I think that's a great idea, and commit to just one or two of them and make them work, as you say.
Yeah.
And I think Twitter, I follow a huge amount of artists on Twitter. I would probably say that 80% are fellow creatives.
Yeah.
Probably the same back for me. And I get a tremendous amount of reassurance and community feeling from other artists on Twitter, because we're all going through the same things.
Yeah.
And we can all appreciate each other's work when it comes on and it gets tweeted out. And we can all appreciate each other and we can all help support each other. And I think sometimes, because of the process of creating, no matter what kind of genre you do, it's such an insular and very isolated affair. By very nature, you are the one creating this particular piece, and it's nothing to do with anybody else because it comes from you.
Yeah.
So that can almost make you feel very isolated at some points. And I think for me, Twitter has opened up a whole world of people who are also the same. You realize you're not on your own. And I think sometimes that's a really good thing to have, because you feel that you are part of a community, that you're part of something big, and whether you make it or not, you gave it your best shot. You met some really great people, even though you'll never meet them in the flesh, perhaps. You feel like you know them, and you can build up a relationship with them. I've met somebody fantastic on quite a few people on Twitter, but one particular person who's become my absolute best friend in the world, thanks to Twitter, because we just connected and it's just blossomed from there. And she's a fellow artist, and we invest time in each other. And I think she's been very, very instrumental in me getting to where I am at the moment, and then looking beyond and beyond. And I've got that to thank for Twitter and how we did that. And it's the most amazing platform, and it's been a life changer for me, and it does on a daily basis, Rob. It's this is how we do it. This is how we've connected, and through this kind of thing. And I just think it's fantastic, and it's done for the right reasons.
Exactly.
That's what I like. That's what I like.
It's fantastic. Just out of curiosity, any marketing methods that you've done that have been flops? That's like, oh, why did I invest time in that? Or why did I listen to them? Like, that's been completely...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've been trying to think about this, actually, over the last couple of days, and there's nothing that particularly springs to mind.
Okay.
No, I can't really say there is anything, simply because I've never really done anything other than the confines of my website, if I'm honest. So I don't really think there's anything that I've actually tried which has been a complete, not a nightmare. I wouldn't do it again. There's been plenty of art experiments I've tried, and I'll never do that again. I've tried all kinds of things and confined them to the trash can, and thought, well, I won't do that again. But in terms of marketing, no, I don't really think there is.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you pretty much decided you want to be an artist, figured out who you wanted to sell to, and just started running. And that's huge. That's an awesome inspiration. As far as, it doesn't even sound like you stopped and thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this, or, you just went with your gut instinct, and that's what I appreciate the most. And getting your name out there is really, it sounds like that's all you were doing, is just getting your name out there, making yourself look good, selling to the people that you knew could afford your work, and figuring out, how to get in front of them. Does that seem correct?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I haven't really done, and that's directly marketed towards specific groups of people. What I've done is try to build the site and my presence around attracting them, rather than going.
I see.
There is a very subtle difference. If I thought that a section of my target market was 35 to 45 professionals or business owners, then it would be relatively straightforward to pick up a phone directory and start looking through small to medium enterprises, and then targeting them with some cold call mail. That's one option to do that. But when I sat and thought about doing that, I felt that it wasn't fitting with the rest of what I'm trying to portray. I'm essentially standing on top of a very tall building and going, hey, everybody, look what I've got. This is really cool. Anybody interested?
Excellent.
And that's, I think, fits in with what my ethos is and what I'm trying to portray. Yeah. Whilst it's very great to get into people's faces and get yourself known, I don't want to be annoying with it. And I don't want to be looking like, I'm not quite sure of the word to use, but you have to do this now, everybody, otherwise it's too late. I don't want to look desperate or anything like that, because I'm not. And I'm not. I just want to keep painting and keep creating, and I want to keep people interested, and to keep pushing my own boundaries, and keep producing different pieces, and keep fulfilling the desire to create as a creative. And I need to do as much as I can then to get the exposure accordingly. Yeah. But getting directly into people's lives and under their noses doesn't fit well with me. And
you haven't done advertising or Google AdWords, that kind of stuff to target.
Absolutely not.
Interior designers or people that might be a potential client. I see.
In fact, actually, flop. I've just thought of a flop. I did get contacted by Vogue in the UK magazine, and I had an ad in there. I couldn't afford a very big one, so I just had a very small ad. I did haggle with them and got a better rate, I might admit. And that was hopeless. Nothing ever came of that, and that's getting on for 2 years ago now. And in that time, I've not had anyone say that they've seen this advert in Vogue, or that they may have been in a doctor's waiting room and just happened to see an old copy of Vogue and seen my advert, etc., etc.
Well, at least you could say you were in Vogue.
I was in Vogue, yes. It was the size of your thumbnail, but at least I was in there. It's not really much to be proud about, let me assure you. So I did try that kind of advertising, but what it did do, Rob, was give me a very, very important lesson, and it cost me some money I couldn't really afford. But it showed me that realistically, if I was going to get into the big time, I would need a sizable advertising budget to do it, which would have to run probably over 6 months into 5 figures if I was to put AdWords in there as well. I'm very familiar with AdWords because I have managed AdWords for other people in the past. So I can understand exactly how much that would cost, and the figures are extraordinary. And I would rather be spending my money in experimenting on something that will, in my own opinion, give me a better return.
I see.
I'd rather do 6 or 7 very large signature pieces and push that out into the world than spend £10,000 on an AdWords campaign, which I can't afford to do anyway, just before everybody gets the wrong impression. I can't do that. But I could see that it would end up running away, and that's what it would cost to do it effectively. So having looked at that, that's not an option for me. I don't have the resource to be able to commit to that. So then it comes back to the principle of, okay, so what do I need to do to get up to as high as I can get on Google without having to run AdWords. So that's where learning more and more advanced search engine optimization techniques come in. And I'm at a point now where I even advise other companies on how to approach their optimization strategy.
Excellent.
But that's self-taught. I've never had a lesson from anybody. No one's ever taught me how to paint. No one's ever taught me how to stretch canvas, what materials to buy. I've just had to develop it by trial and error. I sell a painting, make a few bucks, put that into the next bit.
Fantastic.
Sell that for a few bucks, just keep slightly every single time, just a few bucks higher and higher and higher. And every time I paint, I get a little bit better. And it'll be the same up until the day that I die. I will always get a little bit better. I'll never be quite where I want to be, but as long as we keep getting a little bit better, the site gets better, the art gets better, how we approach people gets better, and your brand image gets better, and you're thought of how you want to be thought of. Well, then that's all you can ask for. That's all you can do, and that's all I'm trying to do day in, day out, is just keep pushing forward, because I believe, and that's the bottom line for me. Right from when I picked up a brush, I believed I could do this. Whether my art is ever seen historically, when I'm long dead and buried, as great, okay, or the biggest pile of trash on the planet, isn't of interest to me. All I want to do is just do the stuff that I know I can do.
Fantastic.
And as long as I stay true to that, I'll be happy. And if it meant from this point on I never sold another painting, I'd still find a way to paint. And that's what I give a monkeys about. That's what I care about. And I believe because of that, you'll always make good art.
Yep.
If you believe that, if you stand in front of the canvas, and I get it all the time, and I'm no different to any other artist, I promise you. If I stand there and think, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I have to walk away. Yeah. And I can go for weeks without being able to do anything because I can't. I just don't know what I'm to do. I've either got no ideas or 1,000 ideas, and I can't seem to quantify anything. And then some days I'll just literally start and throw some paint into canvas and start there and let it organically take itself where it needs to go. So I'm no different to any other artist. We have all got the same hopes and fears. We all have the same demons sat on our shoulders. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if this is any good. Is anyone ever going to buy it? Or you might think something is the best thing you've ever done, and then it sits with you for 4 years gathering dust. You know, you can't second guess it. All you can do is get your hands moving and do something, and eventually it will come good.
Excellent. I've got one more question about the marketing end of things, and
sure.
And then I realized that we kind of started the whole thing with the meat of it, so I didn't even ask you about your art and inspiration. So after this one last question, maybe cool. You can tell me a bit about your art and where you draw inspiration from, and then perhaps tell me, where the listeners can find out more about you with your URL.
Sure.
Is that all right, Swarez? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the last question is about pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do you go from pricing? Should you just start out based on the value, or should somebody starting out price it accordingly? Is it a scale? How do you come up with the prices that you charge?
It's always an ongoing, not battle, but an ongoing thing that I have to be very, very careful about. I think with abstract art, it's, from my own opinion, a lot different to figurative art. Reason I make that distinction is because of the precedent set by figurative art, that you can walk into a high street gallery or a proper art gallery and take a look at. Mm-hmm. So if for argument's sake, a 20 by 16 portrait or a dog or a whimsical scene or a snow scene or an upturned boat on a sandy bay or something like that, unless the artist has a formidable reputation, those kind of pieces, from my own experience, and I'm happy to be stood as to be corrected on this, will fall within a particular price bracket. So from figurative point of view, I think the pricing is not necessarily easier, but can be more defined than it can for abstract art. That's just, again, from what I've seen in galleries in the UK and my own opinion. For abstract art, I think it's very, very, very difficult to do. One of the advantages I suppose I have is because of the size of some of the pieces that I do. Because of the materials that I use in terms of stretcher bars and the kind of canvas and the time it will take me to physically actually make and manufacture the frame and stapling it on the reverse and finishing, that will carry an amount of money even before I try and price up what I've painted.
That's right. I see.
So in terms of that, that's a starting point for me.
Okay. Excellent.
Over and above that, I don't have a formula. I really don't. So I'll be honest, if I stand back and think, oh my God, that is the best thing I've ever done, it's expensive. If I look at it and I personally think, I really, really do not like that, then it's not expensive.
It goes on the discount rack.
It goes on the sale rack. Yes.
That's funny. Well, that's great. And you know what? I believe it comes down to intuition and really listening to yourself. It's like, what do I really want to charge? Not what do I think they want to pay for it? Because if you get into that trap, then it's really hard to get out of that trap, because then you're always trying to cater to somebody else, and you're always trying to paint what other people want, what you think they want you to paint, and it's, to me, it's all about inspiration and where does it lie? Like, what do I want to paint? What do I want to charge? What do I feel is the right way to go? And usually that is the right way to go. And you can draw people to yourself that feel the same way. So Excellent.
Definitely,
What
definitely.
about your art? Tell me about your art and your own inspiration.
Um, this is again a very, very tricky one, that, I think, as you see, I'm struggling for someone who doesn't shut up. I'm now struggling for words. That's all right. Give everyone a listen. Give everyone who's listening a bit of a break for a moment
Yeah.
from me whining on. Um, it can come actually from the most bizarrest of places. I'm not necessarily greatly sort of inspired by the very big things. I kind of get more inspired by the smaller things. I might walk past a shop window and see a vase and just notice a small part of a vase that I think is really good. So I'll take a photo of it on the phone
Okay.
because maybe it's got a really great deep orange in it, and I might think, oh, that orange would look great, or maybe it's combined with another colour.
Yeah.
I tell you what else, this is really bizarre, and I hope I don't come over all voyeuristic here. I don't mean to, but sometimes if I'm getting my grocery shopping, if I see someone who's might be wearing a top or a skirt or a jacket that might have a pattern or a design on it, I stare at it and I think, oh, I really like that. That could make a great painting. And on the odd occasion, I've taken photographs of it, but only because it reminds me of what I want to do in a painting. So really, from the most bizarre kind of areas, I can take all kinds of inspiration. It's not necessarily from a fantastic Mother Nature or from a tall skyscraper or a magnificent sunset. It tends to be from the more trivial and bizarre things, if I'm completely
Excellent.
honest with you.
Yeah.
Bowls of fruit don't do it for me, but a piece of carbon fiber that's
Yeah.
broken with all the fibers sticking out of it.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, that really gets me going.
Yeah.
Things like that. So the most bizarrest of places, Rob, is just all over the place. I get it,
Excellent.
really. But it's shapes and colour.
Yeah.
Which, if you have a look at my work, that's essentially
Definitely.
what it's based around. I love colour, and I love seeing what colours will do next to other colours and how they mix with each other and the kind of results that come out after it. And also shapes as well. I think, I go from very angular, staccato, angled, very rigid, prominent shapes to very soft, wallowing curves, meandering, and I like the difference between the two and how the two can meet themselves together. And I like the almost random, sort of chaotic method of application, but being able to then control it. In a number of paintings I've talked about controlling chaos. Well, are you actually being controlled and then chaos takes over, or are you taking the notion of chaos and actually taming it? And I think that sort of juxtaposition between the two is a real interesting conundrum. How can I take something that's on the end of a wooden spoon and apply it to the canvas from 6 feet in the air, but still have it go where I want it to go? Now, that can take a lot of practice, and it does take me a lot of practice, and I'm at this most days of the week, and I'm trying to find new ways of being able to control what looks apparently random, but actually bring it into some kind of structure. And I think that's taking some of the techniques I've got really for my own development into the next kind of level for me. How far can I take this? Where can I take it to next? How can I make it still look like a Swarez painting, but then produce something a little bit more explosive or a little bit more charismatic or a little bit more energetic? So I'm always looking for those improvements all the time. And I think that because of the way I paint, and I very rarely paint with brushes, it comes down to wooden spoons and spatulas and ladles and sticks. They're my chosen tools. I don't necessarily touch the canvas. Everything goes on, or it gets poured on, or it gets thrown on, and I like that very raw kind of spontaneous way of paint application, because in the end it comes down to, for me anyway, just appreciating what is on the canvas rather than trying to find some deep meaning in it. And I've tried to come away from that really in the vast majority of my work, because I just want people to appreciate what's going on the canvas with the paint and the shapes and the colours. Just take it for what it is. It doesn't have to represent angst or happiness. It just has to be, just appreciate the colour. You know, you walk into New England in the fall, and you'll go there because you want to enjoy the colours and the spectacular tones of the trees and the grasses, and fantastic. But you don't have to sit there and go, am I happy or am I sad? You just have to appreciate the magnificence of how it looks. And that's what I want to try and put into my art. I don't want to put a lot of feeling behind it. I just want and appreciate people to go, wow, I don't know why I like it, but I really love the orange and the purple in that. And that's all I hope to achieve. If I can get that, I'm very happy with it.
I love hearing that. I appreciate that very much.
Good.
It's all about the inspiration. So
that's it. That's my inspiration, really.
The inspiration, yeah, and not like I said before, not doing what you think you're supposed to do as an angst-ridden artist or something like that. You know, and
I'm very unangst-ridden, actually.
I believe those are just more walls that people put up to prevent themselves from wanting to make art, and you know, that's just a dumb cliche that you don't have to have a turmoil in your life to be able to create art. Happiness can inspire art just like anything else. So and art just for art's sake is great, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Art for art's sake. You know, I know there's a song, I think it was by
perhaps
10cc, I think, the English band.
I'll look them up.
Yeah, Art for Art's sake, I'm sure it was.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate it, Swarez, for taking the time, and thank you for being my first guest on my podcast.
Awesome.
And I'll put it together, and it'll be something special, I'm sure.
Well, thank you sincerely, Robert. I've totally enjoyed that, and as you could probably guess, I could go on for another couple of hours.
I've super enjoyed this. I mean, we've gone for an hour now, which is fantastic. Wow. I would have been happy with 20 minutes. So.
Oh wow!
This is fantastic.
I can always talk about art. It's the one thing that runs through my veins. So if anybody ever wants to talk about that, I'd be very happy to do that. If anyone does want to get in touch, by all means through my site, which is. www.swarez, which is SWAREZ.co.uk. Contact button on there. You can DM me on Twitter. Oh, look at me with me Twitter speak. Or anything. If you want to get in touch, I'll always reply back to everybody. I love to hear from anybody, no matter whether it's good, bad, indifferent, curious, or celebrationary, or just want to say hi. It's just great to talk to everybody, you know. And I think I take inspiration from everybody who sends me an email. It's just fantastic with whatever they want to talk about, and I'll help anybody. That's the other thing, Rob. You know, we're all busy people, but we all want to do our own thing, and we all want to get on. But if I can help anybody at any time, I'll go out of my way to try and give, you know, if someone wants some advice or an opinion, or they want, you know, anything. If you want to send me a mail, I love to hear from people. It's fantastic. It's why we get out of bed in the morning, you know. So very, very happy with that, my friend. So go for it.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate it greatly.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too, Rob. Okay. You take care, and if I'm ever online, be sure to give me a call. All right, and we will definitely we'll have a social chat, a non-podcast chat.
You bet. Thank you very much, Swarez.
You take care, my friend.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.